I'm delighted, as always, on a Monday to be joined by commentator Sam Armstrong. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Where do we start?
Quite.
I mean...
It's all going swimmingly, Julia.
I know, it's all going terribly, terribly well. Well, you know, you always talk about the Monday morning announcement. There isn't room for a Monday morning announcement.
They've given up.
They're doing something about housing. No, you know, and it's a very important report about protecting people, but sorry, drowned out by everything else. Let's talk, first of all, to get back to Friday and what's happened over the weekend. This Epping sex attack migrant. He's going to be deported within days. So first of all, it was Tuesday. Now it's by Friday. Who knows? After being mistakenly freed from prison, sparking a frantic manhunt. I mean, you could just imagine the whole eggs on face that were going over on Friday, Saturday, early hours. Well, about 8 o'clock-ish on Sunday morning, he was found after being spotted by a member of the public. Apparently, it was his avocado bag, which anyone who goes to East London, you're basically required by law to get an avocado canvas bag. But this, looking at the timeline, I mean, this man. He was arrived in the country, you know, on like the 7th, you know, early in July. He was arrested on the 8th of July. And he'd been arrived beforehand. Within a few weeks, he had basically sexually assaulted a 14-year-old and a woman on the 7th of July. On the 8th of July, he was arrested, put on remand. 23rd of September, he was sentenced to a year. And 3.5 months later, he's freed from prison by accident. I mean, what on earth is going on?
Yeah, I mean, for starters, are we really saying that the penalty in this country for sexually assaulting two people, one of whom was a child, is you get sentenced in September, and last time I checked, it's still October, and you are out of prison already? Is that what the bar is now?
Well, on remand. You've had the time on remand as well. I'm defending them. What am I doing?
July till October.
Yeah, it's not a year. It's not a year.
It's not half. Why is it not half? Because Labour changed the law to release people even earlier than they were already.
To be fair, your lot, Tories left the place in a mess. But, you know, you accept that. A plague on all your houses. A plague on all your houses.
This law changed the rules to let him out after 40%.
Yeah.
So you get 4 months for sexually assaulting two people in one day, basically going on a sex-crazed rampage through an Essex town, and we are saying that the penalty for that is 4 months. Is it any wonder we have a grooming gang scandal when we set the punishments that bad? I mean, why wouldn't you take the chance if you were him?
Well, your chances are you won't be caught. And look, this is the thing: is this was such a high-profile case. What is extraordinary? I mean, perhaps you know, Hadush Kebatu is not a name that we, you know, will perhaps it slips off the tongue. It's not like, you know, Axel Cabana. Oh, we all know that name. But you'd think someone might have gone into prison. Oh, by the way, you know, because actually, I think it's a couple of hundred people a year are accidentally released from prison. People go in and out of prison all the time. And you've got a lot of, you know, pretty low paid, very demoralised people who've often been in the job for only like a year or so who were in charge of doing that. And they've now instituted some more checks on that. But I mean, this is basically prison officer 101. Don't let out people who are not supposed to let out. The fact that he 5 times, and there was a lorry driver doing a delivery who's done a very, very long interview about, literally this guy was there for an hour and a half outside the prison going, I don't know where to go. I'm supposed to be being deported. Of course, he was quite happy to be deported. He wanted to go back to Ethiopia, but also he was going to be paid This is the bit that really gets me. We pay £2,000 to the people we deport, even the criminals. We pay £2,000 to them.
It's really? 4 months, and you get paid £2,500 for sexually assaulting 2 girls. Now, what happened at that prison is so inexplicable. I can only attribute it to the Midas touch of our Justice Secretary David Lammy. Now, even I am not going to blame David Lammy. Remember, this is a man who went on Celebrity Mastermind and asked, name a blue cheese. He said Red Leicester. Which French Marie won the Nobel Prize? Antoinette. And best of all, which Henry came after Henry VII. Before Henry VII. Which Henry came before Henry VII? He says Henry VIII. I mean, this is not a man that is capable of running a service of the complexity and importance of the prison estate. So is it any wonder that this stuff happens? And by the way, somebody was released in remarkable circumstances from HMP Chelmsford, that same prison, part of the world that I'm from, just last year. He'd managed to fax in a fake release notice from the High Court, and HMP Chelmsford said,
Off
you go. There you go.
I mean, this thing, it's obviously in chaos. There have been years and years of underfunding. It happened before the austerity years under Cameron and Osborne. It definitely happened during that time. A lot of people were shouting, going, you can't actually run justice on the cheap. You really can't. And we are living with here's my thing. I've got no time for David Lamb. I've got no time for this government. I don't think... God, I hate myself for this moment. I don't think they are personally responsible for this utter, abject incompetence. This is across the board. All the people who know about this stuff, former prison governors, Ian Atchison, like that, friends of the show, pointing out like this could, not only could this happen anywhere, this has happened and repeatedly happens, and it's going to continue to happen. So that's the reality. I'd love to ask you about this because I know this happened on Friday. He was only arrested yesterday, but basically this illegal migrant, he sexually assaults a 14-year-old girl and a woman as well who's trying to look after her in Epping, sparking those riots. He finally gets arrested, he gets convicted, he gets sentenced, and he only serves 3.5 months behind bars in total. He's going to be deported this week after he was mistakenly freed from prison on Friday. Imagine all the resources, all the police resources having to be used to deal with that weren't then dealt with, dealing with, shoplifting, your bike being stolen, your phone being stolen, and other sexual assaults. That's the reality. There is a cost to all these things. Just tell us your reaction. I'd love to know what you think about this. Try and keep it clean so we can keep it on air. 0344 499 1000. We all know what we're thinking, like beep, 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 beep. But 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Get in touch on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text costs one standard network rate message. Let's also talk about this report from the Home Affairs Select Committee. It's very, 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 very damning. We are talking about, shocking mistakes dating back years to when deals were signed with operators to house asylum seekers in hotels. Basically, how much would you like to be paid to house asylum seekers? When it all went completely off the scale, lockdown and post-lockdown, and everyone started arriving on the boats, they basically, I think they trebled the actual cost of it all, and there we are. We end up with a huge number of people in hotels, costing us an absolute fortune. It's gone up to, was it 15 billion? It's going to keep on rising because we ain't deporting most of these people. But the key thing on this hotel thing, we're spending something like £145 on average a day on these largely young men of fighting age, when if they were in a bed sit somewhere, it would cost 23 quid a day apparently, but they've just carried on, kept them because they've got these contracts. We have a very big issue with officials in the government, whether it's MOD procurement for missiles or tanks or anything else, whether it's the Department of Health getting PPE in an emergency, or whether it's the Home Office finding accommodation for people who are illegally. These people can't negotiate for toffee. Is it used car salespeople must literally be going, ha ha, you work in the government? Brilliant, I'm doubling my prices.
Yeah, and look, in a sense, it's 46 million over the 15.3 billion we spend a year. It's 3%. It's packing peanuts, but it is, in a sense, emblematic of everything that is going wrong with this, which is it is entirely run by a lanyard class. And this is what I hate about these government contracts. The government came up with this wheeze in which they said, you can only make up to 5% profit on this, and anything more than that you have to pay back to us. Do they heck? Every single piece of other, baseline costs in a business gets shoved into this. Yeah. These people run absolute rings around it. It then costs millions in order to work out how much money has gone which way or the rest of it. And there is nobody in the government on the procurement side, that we will have procurement managers listening along to this show today. They would be, if you're in the private sector, 10 times as good as they are in the public sector, because when you run a business, it's your money. The bottom line really matters. These people don't care, and if they did care, well, firstly, they wouldn't come up with these stupid contracts. They'd negotiate it down in the first place, and they would be getting houses from here, there, and everywhere, doing it cleverly. But secondly, it is emblematic of the fact that they have totally and utterly failed to shut down the need for these hotels.
Ta-da!
As they have repeatedly promised us. Yep. Every single Monday for the last 5 years, we've had some stupid press release from the Home Office announcing the latest wheeze to stop migration. And yet it continues. They say they're going to stop the boats. They didn't. They said they're going to smash the gangs. They didn't. It gets worse. It goes on because they don't care, because at the end of the day, it's not their their money going to pay for it.
Yeah.
It's ours.
The funny thing is, I would be more careful with the public's money than even my own, because you'd feel a moral duty, but they just don't care. But I do have an issue. This hotel, I've got one, near the end of my road that's been taken up. So if you've got family members to stay, we live in a flat. We can stay in that. Oh, you can't stay in that hotel anymore because it's actually not even open to the public. But don't worry, still paying for everything. I also don't want these people living in a local house of multiple occupancy. Apologies. I don't want them. Sorry. Oh dear. Trying not to sneeze. Oh dear. The latest cold's going around. I don't want them living, next door to me. Or next door to anybody. I think it's better that we know where they are. But I would like them to be in proper camps. I don't want them walking the streets. You're here illegally. We've established that. Actually came on a boat. You didn't produce a passport and a ticket showing you had a right to be here or a visa to be here. By definition, you need to be contained and not able to work illegally or to sexually abuse anybody, or even just to scam off the general public. You've got no right to be in this country. End of, full stop. Nothing to do, nothing else to say.
And you're right to raise these houses of multiple occupancy, because this is this government's plan. It's to move people from hotels into terraced streets in the north of England. Let me tell you, there are terraced streets in the north of England that you can go back to the pictures from VE Day. Look at the street, look at that community, look at the culture, the network of people, working people coming together to share their values, to share in a celebration. You can go back to that same street today and it is hollowed out from the inside.
Boarded up.
Nobody there has lived there for any time whatsoever. There is no community, there is no value. That was a British town that has been robbed from the British people by their own government, who have increasingly just turned these streets into, at times, totally dystopian scenes. Rubbish gathering everywhere.
But the point is this, again, you say the lanyard glasses in London, sending these people off over there where they don't live. That's crucially where they don't live. And then calling everybody racist who says, I don't really want a load of undocumented men who are in this country illegally living at the end of my street or by my kids' school, because look what happens again and again and again. And we are seeing, well, look, we've had a horrific murder. A woman murdered with a screwdriver from the guy she was helping, who was an illegal. These are not all these one-off crimes. The things that never happen keep on happening.
By the way, that bloke that murdered a woman...
don't even know his name, because it's just another story.
Indeed. I do know this, though. He murdered that woman in October last year. He had arrived on the 29th of July, the same day that Axel Rudukabana went to Southport and butchered 3 young girls. This country's state is so ineffective that day, the 29th of July 2024, is an emblem for everything that is going wrong from our country. An individual that had been reported to prevent repeatedly for his strange predilection, attraction to extremist violence, and his teachers were told, no, stop doing that, you're only saying it because you're racist. Meanwhile, somebody was breaking into our country, one of 255 men that day that broke into our country, and 3 months later he had murdered a woman and left her to bleed out on a cold railway platform alone. She had a kid at home. 29th of July last year, that was a day that our country changed.
Yeah, and it has, and it really, really has. And look, we know there's an awful lot of pressure on the Prime Minister at the moment. He lost the Caerphilly by-election. It was a massive, big vote, upswing for reform, but it was Plaid Cymru that benefited and won that by-election on Friday morning. We also had Lucy Powell, her victory after being the only cabinet minister sacked at the last reshuffle by the Prime Minister, winning that deputy leadership election with a sort of, a stonking, or is it 80-odd thousand votes. I mean, it was just so not a big endorsement for her. But we also had Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, talking about a growing sense of despair that the public has. He was talking specifically about the NHS, but I would say generally across the board. But Wes Streeting also in the news for comments he's made about Sarah Pochin. She's the Reform MP. She and I have had our run-ins. She doesn't know her bloody policy when it comes to two-child benefit cap. But on the weekend, on Friday, the Reform MP talk in an interview with my top colleague, Mr. Peter Cardwell. This is what she had to say. After a question, by the way, it was a question that she was asked, it needs to be pointed, by a listener about the overrepresentation, he was saying, of ethnic minority people in adverts and what Reform going to do about it. She said, "It drives me mad when I see adverts full of black people, full of Asian people, full of people who are anything other than white." Now that has been clipped by Labour as an attack ad, saying, basically racist, end of, racist. She then went on to say in that paragraph, "It doesn't reflect our society, and I feel that your average white family is not represented anymore in TV advertising." Now, she has apologised for her her remarks were phrased poorly, but she also says that adverts are representative of British society. But let's have a little watch and a listen of Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, on Laura Kunsberg's show on the BBC yesterday. Here's what he had to say about her remarks.
I think what she said was a disgrace. I think it was racist, and the deafening silence from her party leader says it all. Reform is a party who think that our flag only belongs to some of us who look like me, not all of us who have built this country, built its success.
Now, this has become a race row. Like, we need more of those. The thing is, she's quoting from, what she's saying is she's representing a Channel 4 study published earlier this month, which showed that there was an overrepresentation compared to the demographics of this country of people who are black or Asian. Elderly people, disabled people, interestingly, underrepresented. You'd think, elderly people, it's growing, you'd think more elderly people in adverts, they're the ones with the money, apparently, we're told. But while only 4% of the country, of England and Wales, the population is black, they are in something like 50% of ads, but also pointing out that South Asians, so people from the Indian subcontinent, 8% of the population, but in 17% of ads. East Asians, 1% of the population, in 11% of ads. So just pointing out that there is that difference. Is what she said a problem, or is how she said it a problem, Sam?
So I'm going to be annoyingly nuanced here.
But we should be nuanced when talking about these issues, shouldn't we?
Well, I think so. So the first thing is to say is basically, as a country, we have a choice. I've worked in politics for a long time, helping politicians prepare for interviews, amongst other things. You've got a choice, really. Either you can have politicians that give you a straight answer to a straight question, that just tell you what they think, or we can expect them to give perfect, polished answers to everything. Because the truth is, neither of those two things are sustainable. If you want politicians to tell the truth, they are going to express themselves clunkily, clumsily, badly at times. I have no doubt that what Sarah Pochin said there was poorly phrased, and it did not accurately characterise the point that she now says that she was trying to
Yusuf,
bring.
the Reform, whatever his job is this week, head of policy, or he was defending her yesterday, saying again the poor choice of language, as she has admitted herself, but he doesn't believe for a moment that she's racist. Trevor Phillips on Sky was going, who's black, and Zia Yusuf, who's an Asian Muslim man of heritage, saying, would she object to seeing the two of us on television right now?
But I would say this: Sarah Pochin has form for running off her mouth without putting brain in action first. I have seen her do it on policy announcements, as you say, on the two-child policy and other things. And I am concerned across the board. I like a lot of what Nigel Farage has got to say, but I am concerned that the people around him are at times not capable of thinking before they act, thinking before they speak, and it does matter. Now, having said that, I would rather politicians give straight answers
and address the elephants in the room.
To straight questions.
Just the fact that this was a Channel 4 study, this reason I think this caller would have asked about this, because it is a study, and it is something a lot of people talk about it. I have black friends who've talked about it, saying how they have said to me how ridiculous it is that it appears that sort of half the couples in adverts on television are mixed race, when I think it's a very good thing. We have the highest rate of mixed rate marriage in the country, in the world, which I think says something about, again, I don't even think, I hate the word tolerant. We're not tolerant in this country. We are a welcoming, open country, and that's I believe that very strongly, that the vast majority of people in this country are not racist, okay, but they're concerned about culture, they're concerned about economic impact of people who are new arrivals. Those are completely separate things from caring two hoots about the colour of someone's skin. But even saying like that, the feeling is that BBC in particular, but adverts as well on other channels. It's all about sort of a social engineering and telling us what we should be, what we should want,
Julia,
as opposed to representing the country as it is. And we are a majority white country, and if I went to Nigeria, I wouldn't say, well, why aren't 50% of the people on television white?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, is it about representation? Is it about social engineering?
No,
what is it?
I would go further than that. Sarah Pochin was clumsy. There are, however, people making decisions, casting directors, making decisions about the kinds of people that go into adverts who are racist. They are racist against white people. We live in a country that is, as you set out, the demographics are what they are. White actors, white models, etc., must be. It follows like the day versus night that if they are dramatically being underrepresented in these things, they must be getting turned away for jobs for which they are well qualified. We would be told wherever there is an imbalance the other way, where we're told that there are too few women, for example, in politics, we're told that is because of sexism. The same must be true here, and there must be widespread, generalised racism going on.
Deliberately choosing. Again, I was raised, as I think most people of my generation were raised, that Martin Luther King, the colour was totally irrelevant. It was just totally irrelevant. And it wasn't something you should look at. I think we were getting there until a lot of the critical race theory. But it was really interesting because there's been a hit back about, and Sarah Pochin has pointed this out, the hypocrisy, that back in 2020, the Scottish Labour leader, Anna Sarwar, he basically did a speech complaining about how far too many officials in Scotland were white, and people can complain about too many white people, and then that's progressive, and people who complain about, as she did in a very candid way, about her view that there were too many black or Asian people on television compared to the demographics, and that is totally unacceptable. I would say both are unacceptable. And can everyone just stop being obsessed with the colour of people's skin?
Yes,
I mean,
please.
which is what we used to not be obsessed. Well, I mean, yeah, look, there's no doubt at all. I think 70s years, but certainly I think in my lifetime it has changed hugely. But again, even down to I as a woman, I really object to things like women only shortlist, the Labour Party. Well, they had to get rid of that because it was sexist, because it was discriminating unnecessarily. And I think once you've had a few women prime ministers, can we all get over it? First woman this, first woman that, I'm over it. And it's the same thing for me.
But remember this position, Julia, the position that you and I articulate and have at times been called racist for saying we should not care about the colour of people's skin, was the same position that Martin Luther King took in America. It's the same position that the civil rights movement, wherever it has been, where it has been legitimate and genuine, has always been calling for. And we have so lost sight of where we are as a society that we have managed to convince ourselves that being racist by actively preferring candidates on the basis of their colour of their skin. And by the way, there are a number of organisations that participate in schemes where they will only take black interns, for example, like explicitly banning white people from jobs. We have convinced ourselves that that is the non-racist position. Nothing could be further from
the British people are convinced by
nothing
that
could be further from the truth. We just need to get back to just not caring.
I think it's insulting to white people, but I also think it's insulting to black and Asian people in the same way that positive discrimination for women is insulting to women. There was a time when you could perhaps justify either or both of those things. That time is long past, and I think just treating everybody as equals and holding everyone to the same standard is the way forward. But there we are. I just think the main thing, I like the advertising. I think there's a lot of social engineering going on. It's like the way when you do Google searches, what comes up? You're not getting a neutral representation. I think that is an issue. I'd love to hear your thoughts on all of this. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, more crucially, on the illegal migrant who's going to be apparently he's going to be deported. Now he's been freed from prison, and then big manhunt, and now he's been caught. He wanted to be deported by all accounts, but why can't we deport everyone that quickly? And who do you blame for it all?